All right, cool. Yeah, Joe. It felt odd having an event without you there yesterday, man. It was almost like you know what I mean. Like you're the third man on the team almost, man.
Oh man.
Yeah,
It was the coffee yesterday, right? Was that in
yeah.
Yeah,
Cinnaminson?
I was in Cinnamon
yeah,
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
yeah.
It's a shame because I know Cinnaminson such a drive for you, Joe. I have my cousin, well, my family all lives in like West Effort and South Jersey and stuff like that. So, my one sister lives in Collingswood, the other one lives in Pittman. So they're all over the place. But my aunt used to live in Cinnaminson, one of my aunts. And so when you said it was in Cinnaminson, my heart, I was like, oh, I remember my aunt used to live there.
Dawn,
Now I
you
have an ex
sound.
now
Oh,
I
go
have an
ahead.
ex-boyfriend that lives there.
For sure, for sure. All right.
Dawn, you sound just like my college roommate. I'm from the Jersey Shore and she's from South Jersey, and you're rattling off all the towns she would rattle off, and I'd be like, bitch, I do not know where any of these places are, at 19 years old. But now I'm in South Jersey all the time. I'm like, Medford. I'm like, I remember Sarah saying Medford all the time. So now I'm very familiar with, I'll be in South Jersey again later today, too.
That's funny. Well, and it's crazy because my family, I'm from Philly originally. My mom moved when I was 19 and I was out of the house, then they decided to move to Jersey. So I was like, although there's a part of me that was kind of happy that they waited. So cuz I was all over the place. I could rattle off every town in Pennsylvania for you. And you would tell me in Jersey, all I knew was Burlington because I had a friend that lived there. And then Fort Dix because we used to laugh because we were juveniles, and I'm still laugh when I think of Fort Dix. But then I lived on Fort Dix, and I was like, "This is how I this. It's funny." Ha ha ha
I used to laugh at that as a kid too. My daddy was in the military, so
ha.
he used to go to Fort Dix all the time. I'd be like, gay.
The 1570C First Street. That was my address there. That's how, I mean, you just don't forget those things. But yeah, then I learned Jersey, and then my cousins moved to Mullica Hill, and then my aunt lived here, and then my mom moved over, and then all of a sudden it's like, then my one aunt lives in Mount Holly, so it's just all of a sudden, then you start knowing all the different places. But
I don't know
now
any of those places.
that's because
That's
you're a
fine.
North Jersey boy.
Yep,
Once you
I
get
know.
through
I know.
Central Jersey, like nothing exists anymore.
Can
Central
I tell you?
Jersey
I love it.
doesn't
I love
exist.
it because I'm Central Jersey Shore and they are putting up houses isn't even the appropriate word.
Mm.
Huge. They are chopping down huge lands of trees. And it's like
Yeah,
we're kind of like the stronghold before South Jersey. So when I drive down Route 70, I'm like, please don't cut these fucking trees down. So hopefully it doesn't change too much.
No, for sure. All right, we got some folks joining, so we're a little early. Thank you all for being early. The folks that are already joining, we got a couple more minutes. We'll let folks kind of pile in, and we'll get underway.
I'm just closing down some windows here so my computer stops working like a.
Yeah, no, I should do the same thing actually.
You know what? I will too. Listen. Brendan knows I only operate, but so does he with like 30 different windows open.
Seriously.
I think yesterday I had like 115 windows open, and I finally just said, I'm turning my computer off because I can't even deal with this anymore.
I love when mine forces me to shut everything down. I was like, nah, forget about all those tabs I had open. I probably didn't need those.
That's funny.
All right.
Mm.
Do you guys have any plans for this weekend?
Each
Man,
baby.
what am I doing this week? I feel like I got to go. I'm going to Virginia this Friday to kind of do some scouting for some Mud Brothers stuff. So that should be fun.
nice.
Yeah. All right, guys, we are at 12 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get us rolling. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. So BC, I'm gonna just cut your camera for right now.
That's fine.
Yep. Perfect. All right, so let's jump right into it. First and foremost, everyone, thank you for being here. Good afternoon. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Brendon Robinson. I'm the chairman and co-founder of the New Jersey Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. And once again, I truly appreciate your time and energy today. One of the biggest challenges we have in this industry is that things are constantly changing incredibly fast. Regulations are evolving, technology is evolving, and most importantly, the markets are evolving. If we're not continuously learning, we're falling short. All right. So that's why we created this NJC3 Lunch and Learn and this virtual series. Our mission as a chamber is really simple, guys. We want to advocate for the industry. We want to create meaningful relationships, give you all the experiences and platforms to connect one another, like we always do. But with these lunch and learns, they're not sales pitches. These are opportunities to hear directly from subject matter experts who are solving real problems in real time. And that brings us to today. All right. So we got the wonderful Miss Dawne Morris from Proteus420. I want to thank Proteus420 for sponsoring this lunch and learn as well. I'm super excited to have Dawne here. She's not only a Jersey girl and a powerhouse in the industry, but she's been doing it national, guys. You know what I mean? She's a household name from here to California, and just have so much respect for her. So happy to have her be our keynote today and really do her thing. For anybody who doesn't know Proteus420, they are one of the leading technology platforms in our industry, really helping cannabis businesses improve operational efficiencies, strengthen compliance, streamline inventory management, and just make smarter business decisions. But what excites me the most about today's conversation is that it's so much more than software, right? It's about how operators think, making better decisions, and building these systems that create confidence in all of us as operators and just doing what we do and doing what we do best. So I know, Dawn, I know you have a presentation prepared, and you want to kind of do this more like a TED Talk, which I think is really cool. So I'm going to take a step back. While Dawn's talking, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll also have some time at the end of this presentation to do a live Q&A as well, so don't fret. But yeah, Dawn, the floor is yours, and I'm going to move out the way.
Hey, everybody. And thank you guys, Brendon, Beth, I appreciate you, and the New Jersey Cannabis Chamber of Commerce. You guys are doing amazing things, and I love supporting you and your vision and obviously the brands in the space. I'm going to make a statement that may sound strange coming from someone who owns a software company. And that is the best technology in your business is almost invisible. And with that, I'm going to start sharing my screen a little bit with you guys so that we can kind of take a look and see what this is going to look like for you. And because when I say something like the best things in cannabis, and best things in business should be invisible, you shouldn't be invisible, but your technology should be, almost. Most business owners believe they're buying a software, and they're not. They're choosing how their businesses will make decisions for the next 5 to 10 years, and that is very important. In 2008, when we entered the cannabis industry, operators weren't asking for AI. They weren't asking for dashboards. They were asking one very simple question: how do I stay compliant and keep my doors open tomorrow? Over the last 18 years, I've had the privilege of walking through hundreds of cultivation facilities, manufacturing operations, dispensaries, and delivery businesses. I've seen incredible technology. I've seen not so incredible technology. I've also seen businesses buried under technology that was supposed to make their life easier. So after nearly 2 decades, I've realized something. The businesses that grow the fastest aren't the ones with the most software. They're the ones with the least friction. And for those I haven't met, and for those who don't know who I am Dawne Morris. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Proteus420. I have spent nearly 30 years in technology, and in the past 18 years helping cannabis businesses, operators build businesses that are compliant, scalable, and profitable. Now I'm going to ask you the most important question that you have ever been asked about technology. When was the last time your technology surprised you by making your job easier? Now, most people will smile, but they can't remember. And when you think about that, now think about how often your technology surprises you by creating more work, right? How often are you utilizing a system or systems that's making more work for you and your team? And so, this is not a software presentation. This is going to be a conversation about trust. I'm going to prove to you by the end of this session that every technology decision ultimately comes down to one thing: can I trust the information that I'm using to run my business? And so with that, we're going to talk about the technology you don't see is running your business and why the best technology is almost invisible. In 2008, when we entered this space, operators weren't asking. I kind of explained that. And over the last 18 years, I have had that privilege of working with many businesses. And it came down to three particular points of service. There were three acts, right? If you think about it in the play of life, the first one is the problem that nobody talks about. And in this case here with technology, that problem that no one talks about are your pain points, right? The things that you have to do in order to get to the numbers or the answers that you need to get to for your investors, for your vendors, for your partners, any of those things. But at the end of the day, those pain points are the things that also cost the most work for your employees, or for your team members, or just for you as a business owner. So the second part of that problem is also the second act. It's act two, right? Why businesses keep buying the wrong technology. And we're going to address that as we go through here. And the invisible technology that changes everything. The businesses don't know the right questions to ask a lot of times. And that's not the problem, for you. That's the problem for us overall. We were never taught what should we know and what should we ask when we're looking to make our business better. So when we think about what the Act 3 follows through, it's the success of the business, right? It's the things that keep you running and moving so that you can, when you ask the right questions, you're able to get answers easily, quickly, and efficiently. So let's talk about the most important technology in your business. It's the technology that your customers never notice. Let's take retail for an example. When we look at a retailer or a delivery, how many times have you been in during your day and you've heard your bud tender or you've heard one of your service members say, "I'm sorry, just give me a minute. My computer's running really slow," or "I'm waiting for my POS to update," or they've apologized for something that the software is doing. Customers don't care about the software. The customers care about the product. They care about the interaction with you. They care about you as a business. And so when you are servicing your business and your customers efficiently, the technology should never be a part of that conversation to the customer. Where it should become a part of that conversation is, would you like to be on our VIP list? Making it easy for them to join up and get information. So it's not technically invisible, it's a streamline. And so when we think about where our customers are, whether our customer is another business or our customers are the consumer facing customer, that technology is something that they should never really be aware of. So when we think about that customer and when we think about this, I put a picture in front of you, and I want you to look at this picture and I want you to tell me what you see, because a lot of people see the same things. They see customers, they'll see a register, they'll see products, they'll see employees working. And that's great. That is what you should be seeing as a business owner. But what the technology sees is the inventory, what it's costing those products. So the accounting, the compliance portion of this for taxation and different pieces that are going to go out to your different industry leaders, and the integrations, right? The marketing pieces that you're capturing, how you're going to talk to those. So when we think about these invisible things, we have to think about why those invisible things determine whether this business survives, right? So a lot of times business owners think about the profit part of the business. What am I selling? How much am I selling it for? That I need to sell this quickly. I need to get this out the door. And so most business owners currently right now, specifically in cannabis, are looking at it from the picture phase, right? You're looking at it, you see the people, you see the register, you see the products, you see the employees. This is what you're seeing as a business owner. You should be able to rely on that invisible technology that's looking at the more important factor pieces of that in the inventory, accounting, compliance, and integration. So it's important because when we think about how they work together and how that invisibility piece of the technology kind of comes into play, it allows you to focus on what you see here in this picture and trust in the fact that your computer or your technology is actually doing what it needs to do in the back end. So the survival becomes kind of more of a integrated piece of trust. And you're going to hear that word a lot from me today. Something that I like to show here, and I'm not sure how, if you can see this, but it's the iceberg effect, right? When we talk about the invisible technology and we talk about the iceberg effect, it's what we see above the water, right? We're on a boat, we're in a situation, businesses buy what they can see, right? Which is the customer experience. So you're buying into the top of that iceberg. You're looking at that iceberg. How big is it? How large of it? How much ice is on there? How much can it sell for? How much can I get for that iceberg, right? And so when you think about it, you're always looking at it from that customer experience. That's important. That is what a customer and a business owner should be looking at. And even from a B2B standpoint, you'll hear me say the customer, but the customer is also businesses and other businesses. It's not just a consumer-facing person. So when you think about what businesses buy, what they can see in that customer experience, under the iceberg, the technology sits, right? So under the water, the pieces that are holding that business up, keeping that iceberg floating. Because if it's not running it, that iceberg is going to flip. And then you're going to have a part of that that's unusable, right? Pieces that you're not trying to sell, things that are hard, non-malleable, things that you are not going to be able to replace quickly and easily and efficiently. So when we think about what the business is doing underneath there and that technology, that invisibility, right? It's the inventory, your accounting, your CRM, which is your customer customer response management system, compliance, reporting, payroll, deliveries, purchasing, marketing, operations, all of these things, they all build up and they weight that customer experience, and it runs invisible in the background. So a successful business invests in what they can't see. And that's a great technology that allows the business to actually buy what they can see, which is the customer experience. So as a technology person myself and someone who's been in technology for a while, we think about, we've got all of these pieces in technology around us all the time now. Our cell phones, our laptops, our computers, our tablets. We are constantly inundated. And if you're in a retail position, you've got kiosks and tablets. You've got all of these things in there. If you add a bud bar, you've got pieces, if you've got a fully technology stacked retail space, even your tags are probably technology centric. So when you think about it, the technology illusion is how many apps are on your phone, right? When you think about it, how many software subscriptions does your business pay for? And when you think about those types of pieces, it's the stacking piece that you're looking at, right? So think about those apps. How many times do we download an app and we look at it and then we realize that we buy it and it's $7.99 here, $12.99 there? The software subscriptions, right? You're buying ChatGPT, you're buying your CRM. Let's just look at HubSpot and other things like that. We get into what is known as a tech stack. And it creates this illusion that you are running your business efficiently and effectively. But realistically, what you're doing is you're moving from one technology to the other. And sometimes they don't talk to each other. A lot of times they don't talk to each other and they don't work with each other. So basically what we have found from technology audits is that you end up in what's called as a tech debt, right? So businesses don't have technology. They have collections, right? You're collecting subscriptions, you're collecting applications, you're collecting technology stacks. And it makes the day harder for your employees. It builds on things that are not integrated or are integrated, but that they still have to move and weave through. So there's this illusion that everything's running when in fact you're just collecting. And it's something that I really would love businesses to think more about when we think about where our technology is. Look at your phone. Look at the integrations you're currently running to run your business. How many of those are you actually using on a day-to-day? How many of those are duplications, right? You can cut a lot of your overhead costs just by simply looking at that particular illusion that you're given. It creates kind of a domino effect, right? So when we think about it, one mistake creates the chain of failure, right? One mistake, and if you make inventory wrong, then purchasing is wrong, cash flow becomes wrong, margins become wrong. When the CEO or the ownership of the business is looking at the purchasing reports, the inventory reports, and the cash flow reports, and if they're wrong, then the CEO or the ownership is making wrong decisions. And when you'll hear me say a lot of times when you get to know me a little bit better and we talk more, I will always say good information in is good information out. And your technology isn't software. Your technology isn't software, it's decision making. So when you think about that perspective and you ask that question, how many times did you have to modify something because you had to go back to inventory and realize that your inventory counts were off? And then purchasing double ordered on a product that wasn't actually really selling very well. And that puts a hinder into your cash flow. How many times are you looking at what you bought an item for versus what you're selling it for? Do you have marginal reports to see what you're making on products, what you're selling products for? If you are a cultivator, if you are a manufacturer, are you looking at the components and the recipes that make up your products? The water, the electricity that goes into growing your plants, those are all parts of the cost of that product to do business. And so if you're not tracking those marginal pieces, then you're not making good business decisions because the technology isn't giving you the information that you need, or it's giving you the wrong information. So when we think about that statement, technology isn't software, it's decision making. And so when you think about your technology, is it helping you make the right decisions? And that brings us down the pipeline to the daily operator. On average, what we have found through conversations and talking to many different companies over these years, the daily operator is using 7 different systems. Not one of them is owning the truth of the system, right? So where's your point of truth? Where is the one thing that you can rely on that is always functionally accurate, right? Always functionally accurate is their truth. Counting blames inventory blames the POS, everyone blames compliance. And then what happens is ownership loses confidence. And so when ownership starts losing confidence, they start ripping apart things and they create more work for the job force, right? That daily operator is then inundated with trying to prove that the system is working. So when you hear me say, nobody's owning the truth, with the proper system and the proper technology, the truth is undeniable. It's provable. It's right there. So the problem wasn't the software. The problem was it was fragmented. So it's fragmentation. So when you look at 2 people sitting at a desk, and I'm going to duplicate this image in the next slide for you. But when you look at this, you may see 2 people who are working together and they're working as a unit in what is the infrastructure of their business. But you could also switch it to look at it and say they're trying to solve a problem because they don't know where the truth is in the information that they were given. So they're trying to potentially solve a problem. And if you see, they've got a laptop open, someone's got a tablet, another one has a computer screen, and what they're looking at is fragmented information that they have to piece together to figure out where their source of truth is. And what happens here in that, and the reason I've duplicated this image is because you find that people will actually copy paste Excel, email. They'll just send all of this information, and they are people that you are paying for labor. They are people that you are paying to do a job. And if they are spending more hours moving information instead of making better decisions and helping ownership make better decisions, then the technology should remove the technology there should remove the work, not create it, right? So we're looking at making the job easier to flow seamlessly. Technology should never make more work for your workers. It should actually make your workers work easier. What's the old saying? Work smarter, not harder. And that's where technology should come in. So when we think about where we have been and some of the conversations that we're going to have in regards to technology, everybody's hearing it's the AI, right? And let's talk about the wrong question. Does your software have AI? Everybody's asking that. Does your software have AI? If you don't have AI, then you're not in the right software. That's the wrong question. The correct question is, does your AI help you and your team make better business decisions? If the AI is just giving you regurgitated things that you could pull from reports, it's not helping you. It's just giving you more, it's giving you the same information that's already readily available, and it's just taking up space. It becomes a collectible, right? So when you think about that, there's two sides of this coin. There are people that are so pro AI that are like, everything has to be AI, AI this, AI that. The understanding is that AI is still very juvenile. It's still in its waking phases. There's still a lot of people learning about it, but not, and you'll notice that we as humans tend to go with the trends. We did this 30 years ago when the dot-com boom happened, right? So, if you look at the trends through history from life, you had the dot-com boom, that boom failed. Then you had the mortgage industry boom, that industry mortgage boom failed. Then you had the cannabis industry, right? We have the cannabis industry, and we are in this industry and we're bringing this to fruition. We do not want to see this fail. What's happening is now we're seeing AI coming in, and AI is the new trend, the new boom, right? So when you think about these trending pieces that are in the marketplace, you have to ask yourself the right, correct questions. Is it helping my business? Is it going to grow my business? Is it going to make my business decisions better? And that's something that AI should be doing for you, not making more work. It should be making you work smarter, not harder. So when we think about technology, it is ultimately the quiet hero, right? Technology should be like electricity, right? You need it, you use it, but nobody walks into a building and says, wow, great electricity, Nobody says, that's great electricity that you've got there. But they notice when it disappears, right? If you don't have electricity, you don't run your business. You have no lights. So the best software will work exactly the same way. So when you think about your technology and your software and the things that are running your business, it should run in the background, and it should run exclusively for your business. It should help you make better business decisions. It should help you answer questions, do smart business, sell your product, sell your wares. And at the end of the day, if it went away, it would affect your business negatively, right? So if you don't have electricity, you don't have business. You can't open your doors because there's no power. So technology should operate that same way. Reliability, exclusivity, but also if it goes away, it would affect your business in a negative way. If your current stacks and your current software, if it went away and you wouldn't notice, then it's not doing what it needs to be doing. So I've said the word trust quite a bit. And when we think about the word trust in our industry, it comes with every decision comes from data, right? Good data in, good data out. Bad data in, bad data out. So if the data isn't trusted, nothing else matters, because you're not going to be able to make the business decisions that you need to make with bad data. And I have my happy little robot here because I always tell, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the happy robot is he's the ingenious way that a lot of the technology is running in the background. He is the source, or they are the source, that computer component, now AI and all of these pieces that are running behind the scenes. But if you can't trust him to give you good data, then you don't trust him to run your business or to help you run your business. And at the end of the day, the reason the trust is important is because the CEO dashboard is very important. And this is a question that I ask people when I'm talking to them. If I, as an owner, called you at 2:00 in the morning, could you tell me what my inventory was for the day, the cash was for the day, what my margin was for the day, what my top selling products were for the day, what were my labor costs for the day, without opening 5 different systems? Would I have to open a payroll system? Would I have to open up my POS system? Would I have to open up a reporting system and a CRM? How many systems do I have to open? Would I have to open up an Excel worksheet in order to get this information? Or could I automate that so that the CEO doesn't have to wake me up at 2 a.m. and gets an email at 2 a.m. every morning with the numbers for the day before? This is the invisible software. again, it takes away from the ability for you to have to be involved in every aspect. You're basically just verifying the information. So I think that's always a very important question as an owner. If I'm calling my employees at 2 o'clock in the morning, which I would never do, but if I did, could they give me the information that I needed? And I will tell you, as an owner operator of a technology, all of my employees use our technology. I use my technology. I rely on it. So it is my source of truth. So let's talk about the future, right? We have the future of where things are going, right? When we think about the future, software is never going to disappear. You're going to need software to run your business. Interfaces will. The way business interface with their software, they will change, they will go away. AI becomes conversational, right? So what AI is now right now is everybody says it's predictive and it's these things, but it's still learning. We started building AI 5 years ago, and we just launched it a year ago because we finally felt that it was where it needed to be for our customers. When we think about that conversational piece of it, it's going to now learn to be predictive with the newer trends that are coming out. We released our AI when it became predictive. We didn't want it to be conversational. Conversational was the beta testing, the alpha testing. Now it's a predictive system. And when we think about automation, it is going to be expected. And this is the future of technology. Software won't disappear, but interfaces will. AI will become conversational. Your technology will become predictive. It will help you do better business. And automation will be something that is needed to run your businesses. Businesses will start learning, they won't ask, where's the report? They're going to start asking themselves, what do I do next? What should I do next? How do I grow? How do I expand? Those are the things that we want business owners to be talking about. So at the end, thinking about where we are and where we're going to be, there are 3 questions that you should always ask about your technology. Does it save you time? Does it reduce your risk? And does it improve your decisions? If not, why are you paying for it? And why are you owning it? And that is a question that I think is really important for most business owners to ask. If your technology is not saving you time, is not reducing your compliance risk, and is not helping you make better business decisions, it's already a waste of time and money. So I'm offering everybody a challenge. I would love for everybody tomorrow morning, fresh-eyed, ready to start your day. I want you to walk into your business and I want you to ask, what technology is my team working around instead of working with? Have this as a conversation with your team. What are they struggling with? What is easy for them? How long is it taking them to do a standard sale, a standard task that you give to them? How many pieces of technology are they using in order to run your business? So when you ask them what technology your team is working around instead of working with. And that's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for conversation with your team. It's an opportunity for a conversation with the partners and ownership, or even just with yourself, where you're able to go in and you're able to say, at the end of the day, is this the right system for me? Is this the right technology for me? Is this going to help me grow my business? So I have a little statement that I like to always share with people, and I tell people technology should become invisible. People should become extraordinary, and your team should be, anything that you're giving to them and anything they're doing should make them look like they are the most amazing worker in your business. It should make them accelerate. It should make them excel. Should make them want to learn and grow. And so the technology becomes that catalyst for that extraordinary experience. And I have found that businesses that embrace that kind of ideology found that they had less turnover, they had better qualified employees, and better teammates and team managers who wanted to grow together with the team rather than be an individual and stand alone. And that is, in the cannabis industry, kind of what we've always been about, is community. So when we work individually in this industry, we're not becoming better for the businesses that we're supporting. So that is what I will leave you with today. And I would like to thank everybody for for the time that they gave me today. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. And I always tell people our mission statement has and always been trust, respect, and confidence. And if there's anything that we can do for you, I would love to share that with you.
All right, awesome, awesome, awesome. Dawn, that was amazing. First and foremost, thank you so much.
You're
Um,
welcome.
yeah, seriously. I mean, that was incredibly informative. I know I personally took away a bunch of takeaways I got written down here, so that I want to touch on at some point. But so we had several questions come in during the registration period that I want to ask you, but I want to give the folks who are here live a chance to do some Q&A with you first. So if any,
Definitely.
yeah, so if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and we'll call you on up and we can have a chat.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I know giving up your lunch hour to listen to crazy redhead talk can sometimes. So I always want to give a little bit of my goal in every day is always to learn something new. So if I can share something with anybody on some insights.
All right.
Yes.
While we're
Yes.
waiting, while we're waiting for the first one to come in, I'll go to one that we got sent in to us during the registration period. User said, "I'm still using spreadsheets and a handful of different software programs to run my business. At what point does it make sense to invest in a more comprehensive operating system?"
The minute you told me that you were using multiple spreadsheets and several systems, you automatically should have started using a technology that was going to support your business a little bit better because it comes down to man hours, right? Let's think about it from the simplicity of it. If you've got a worker who's spending 2 hours a day duplicating work across spreadsheets and systems, that's 2 hours a day that they're spending on wasted time that could be automated. So when you look at what you're doing, if it's something that you're doing consistently over and over again, if you can replicate it and automate it, that's the moment that you're already wasting your time on duplication. Because when you think about it from a money perspective, let's say you're paying that person $25 an hour, 2 hours a day over 52 weeks. That's like $13,000 a year, and that's Dawn doing math in her head right now, so it's on or off by a little bit. But that's $13,000 that you're paying to an employee to just basically duplicate and replicate information that should be automated. Right there, that is money that you could have put into purchasing more products, maybe getting a brand representation within your shop or new product offerings as as a manufacturer. That's some R&D money right there.
Sure.
As a cultivator, that's some new seed genes. So there's a lot of things that money could have done. And so thinking about it, that's a question that is a great question. And once you get to that point, it's definitely time to start having the conversation about automation.
No, I couldn't agree more. Margins are always a big topic in our industry, and when you can
Oh
save some
yeah.
money, and not waste some money, more importantly, it's always a huge piece. We do have a first question from Taylor Mullen. Taylor, I'm going to unmute you and let you come on in here and ask your question.
Hi, Dawn. How are you? I met you in Chicago. You were amazing.
Oh, thank you. Nice to meet you again, Taylor.
So nice to see you again. I didn't actually have a question. I also took a ton of notes, and I just wanted to say how impactful it was, your statement about how a lot of these companies, they're not taught how to be successful. They're not taught what questions to ask. And I think that's such a huge issue in all business, but especially in cannabis, right? You're starting behind the eight ball and being able to have people like you just provide this level of education, this level of direction for so many of these companies, because I know everybody's running a million miles an hour, and they sometimes don't stop to talk to somebody like yourself and really get this out of mentorship. So I just really appreciate you taking your time to provide this information to people.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I come from an era. I'm an old 80s kid, so I'm old as dirt now, but my grandfather always said if you're not learning something new every day, what are you doing? And that's something that I've kind of lived by. It's kind of been my foundational root. And I feel like sharing that education and sharing that information is important. But look, let's talk about cannabis for a minute. We've been doing this now 18 plus years. And, and I can tell you the people in the industry, we know how to grow the plant. We know how to make things
Mhm.
with the plant. We know how to sell the plant to consumers. We know how to smoke the plant. We know how to drink the plant. We know how to do everything with this plant. It doesn't mean that we actually know how to run the business. And that's okay.
Exactly.
Because, that's where you lean on that trust factor, right? And there is a part of every industry where there's the used car salesman tactic, and it's always kind of
Mhm.
bothered me. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. There's always going to be someone there where their bottom line is how much can they make off that person for how long of a period of time. So my goal has always been whether you use my software or not is irrelevant. But if I can give you some sort of education to help you become a better business person or to help you run your business successfully, that already, then I've done my job and I've done my due diligence. And so it's very important for me to be able to share that knowledge. Again, it's this culture is community. It always has been and it always will be.
No, I love that. Thank you so much, Taylor.
Thank you, Taylor. I did notice that there's a question from Kevin Robinson, and he said, does the system have audit trails? Yes. And I will say unequivocally, yes, 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 yes. And I say that because our system was built from two premises very early on, inventory and cash, right? We knew inventory was always going to be a compliance issue, and we knew that cash was always going to grow feet and walk away. So in order for us to be, inventory and cash centric, audit and audit trails of every transaction is very important. So from the minute you create an employee in the system and modulate them all the way out to the financial aspect, there is transactional audits for inventory moving, every sale, every state reporting piece, how many times it's been sent to the state, if an order was revised and edited, if it had to be voided with the state reporting system and then resent. And it tracks all of those. So I sometimes refer to it as Big Brother is watching, and a lot of people get freaked out by that, but it really is the system is Big Brother, and the system is looking out for you from a perspective of reconciliation, right? Reconcile your inventory, reconcile your cash, all of your transactions. So when we think about an audit trail just isn't simply money or inventory. It could be how many times an employee has logged in, where they're logging in from. That's an audit trail. Those are things that are built into the system. So those, yes. So yes, we do in all different areas of the system. Auditing is very important because again, you have to trust the system that you're using. And so if somebody says, hey, I don't know how this discount was added to this invoice, you can literally go into the invoice, look at the log notes, and you could see who changed it, what time, what they changed it to, how many times they modified the invoice. Those are important pieces because if that employee wasn't trained properly and now they're modifying inventory or invoices, you now know where the problem therein lies. Maybe you have to go back and train them. If it's something that somebody is doing over and over again after multiple trainings, then maybe the hard conversation has to be that they're the wrong employee for the position.
Yeah, listen, sometimes those tough conversations have to happen, right?
Yeah. And that's
Um,
part of being a business owner, unfortunately, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
for sure, for sure. Again, ladies and gentlemen, please raise your hand if you have any questions. You can also drop them in the chat for Dawn. While we're waiting, Dawn, I have another one that came in through registration.
Yeah.
This person said, what's the biggest technology mistake you see cannabis businesses making today, regardless of their size?
Not auditing their inventory.
Yeah.
That is the biggest mistake. And that goes across the board for everybody, from a cultivator all the way out to the retailer. Um, there's this um, there's this distrust I have in any system, in any area or any business, and it doesn't matter if it's sneakers or cannabis. There's always going to be somebody who wants or has this idea that they don't make enough and that what you have should be theirs. And so things walk away. And inventory is always the biggest portion of that. And with cannabis and the compliance area of it, and the fact that we have to report when any of these products are missing, whether it's theft, whether it's, shrinkage, any of those pieces are there. So we have to unfortunately approach it from the perspective that not everybody is honest. And so if your team doesn't think that you're auditing the inventory, they're going to be more prone to take because it's not being audited. If you get into the position of auditing your inventory from, from manufacturing and components to, to retailers and deliveries, if they know that you're auditing that, whether it's weekly or daily, they tend to not, if that little person in the back of that little devil on their shoulder says, oh, you should take that pre-roll, nobody will miss it because they don't audit it, they'll think twice, and and again, the question therein lies also is that if that is happening with the audit trails, you'll be able to see where who's on shift, who's doing those things, and when they're auditing, if they're constantly short, over under on money, over under on product, there's a trend there, and then you have to have that hard conversation.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Another question that came in, I think is probably good for the group. It says, how can operators use data to make better decisions instead of simply collecting the information that they never actually use?
I love that question. Whoever asked that question, I want to kiss them on the lips because that is the best question. That is what every owner operator should be asking in their business, right? And so I can speak for my system. I know that with Proteus, we definitely have the predictive analysis that's in there, that when you log in the morning, there's a dashboard, and the dashboard will, our Phoebe comes in there. She's our AI agent. She'll come in and she'll say, we've noticed that this is your expirations reports. Here's, these products are expiring. There's a purchase order with these expiring orders looking to, be purchased. She'll make predictive recommendations for you.
Oh, wow.
Though she will ask you those questions in the morning as soon as you start. Your manager, whoever has access to do that, the owner operators. So she's doing those things. She's also setting reports for you in a way that you can automate, that you can send, so that maybe you forget. We all wear multiple hats daily. And so sometimes we just forget to ask that right question. Again, I'm going to lean in on the retail side just a little bit more because sometimes it's just a little bit easier to answer that question this way. But when you think about it, how many employees are coming in for a shift, right? You may have 10 employees and 5 of them are coming in for a Sunday shift where your volume is not very heavy. Why are you going to? So the system, I know with us, our system will say you have 5 people scheduled to work this day, but your average income and margin or profit for that day is X amount of dollars. Are you sure you want to have all 5 of these people scheduled? So there is that predictive pieces of it. And the system, again, relying on a source of truth. If you're putting information in and you're using this one system to be able to run your business, then what happens is you wind up being able to trust the information that's in there. I know we work very heavy with margins, I teach everybody, I say we make everybody, but when you are a business owner and you're bringing in product, right? Being able to bring in that product for what you paid for cost on it is really important, because when you're selling it or you're pricing it out, what is your margin going to be? If your margin's going to be 25% plus, evening it up, like rounding up to the nearest dollar. So if you're looking at 25, if you're looking at a pre-roll and you bought it for $1.50 and you're selling it for $7, calculating out the back end of taxes, all of those things, we will do that for you. The reports will give you that. We have a really great detailed sales report that will show you how many sales came in through the day, how many of them were new, how many were recurring customers, what your cost was for all those products, and what your true margin is after discounts and tax. So giving you those numbers are really important, because that's the business decision that the ownership needs to have to make the growth decision. Are you going to open up another retail dispensary? Are you going to are you going to add delivery as an option? Like, there's so many things that you can do based with these decisions.
I gotta be honest with you. I really love what you guys are doing for the main reason. One of the hardest things in this industry as an operator, there's 95 hats you got to wear.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's damn near impossible, right? But you guys are providing a solution that, again, you still got to work, you still got to put the time and the energy in, but it's going to give you the tools and the necessary information you need to really make calculated decisions. And I think that that's a huge piece, no matter what part of the industry you're in. So I just want to thank you and Proteus for just providing that
Thank
platform,
you.
not only our members, but just the industry as a whole.
Well, and it's important too because when you think about it, it's a toolbox of tools. We're going to give you this toolbox with all of these tools. It's going to make your life a little bit easier. And so, and it's where you start getting into the stacking versus the non-stacking. As an ERP, we are all inclusive, right? So everything for all the business, it's not just the component pieces or the modulation that runs your business, depending on where you sit in the industry. Are you a micro business? Are you an MSO, an MLO? Are you a one person operator who's just running, are you a distributor and that's all you're doing? So wholesale, retail, all of these things are built in there to factor in the fact that every business is slightly just a little bit different. And so what I tell people is you get a proprietary system without having to spend the millions of dollars to develop it. And, and the great thing about it is that we work hand in hand with all of our customers. Our support team, we work and we listen to the pain points that they've had when they came to us, and then we help them make it better for them. And they come to us. We have an open door policy for all of our customers. You have any questions? Do you have any requests? Things that you think might be easy, make easier for yourself and everybody else. The system gets bigger and better because we are collectively working as one. And so it just helps the industry overall.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I did have one question of my own.
Okay.
If I could sneak it in here. You said something that really resonated with me. You said that, kind of look at three factors whenever you're making decisions with these type of situations. Does it save you time? Does it reduce risk? Does it improve decision making? And I clearly see how you guys can save time. I clearly see how you can improve decision making. When you think about reducing the risk, right? Regulations in cannabis seem to change every day, let alone every week, every month, every year.
Yeah.
How can you all help your users in terms of remaining compliant with the evolution of these new regulations?
So the compliance portion of that is really important. And obviously we lean real heavy in on our state compliance portions. So we're in 44 states across the US, and we are always up to date with any of the new changes. We work very heavily with Metric and BioTrack in the individual states, and there are some other states that actually have their own state reporting system. You've got like Washington State and Vermont, and then you've got states that have medical validation before they even purchase, like Mississippi. So each state is very different. So when you log into the system, it's looking at what state, when we set you up, we're setting you up in the compliance area for your state. Now, that's something that is, that is really important for a lot of businesses. They rely heavily on it. But honestly, it all comes down to the chain of custody outside of the compliance. The settings portion of our system is very heavy. So when the first day that we set you up on our system, we spend an entire hour going through all the settings, tax settings. Cannabis has some of the most complex tax calculations. We have accountants that'll come in and be like, well, I did this total number and times it by 25%, and this isn't adding up. And I'm like, no. You'll have invoices. We tax by line item. So you can have cannabis and non-cannabis items on the same invoice. That non-cannabis item doesn't get excise tax, but the cannabis item above it does. And so we have to factor in all of those things. And I really do think, having 18 years of experience, being the first point of sale system in this industry, and working with the first Prop 64 license helped us. It helped us prepare for what this industry was going to be doing and how it was going to be moving. So from that compliance stuff, there is some finger pointing we'll do. We do rely heavily on Metric for that chain of custody compliance. But as far as the compliance for the state and the state regulations, there's some ownership to that has to go into the owner. It's their state, it's their information. They should know what their regulations are. If they're not sure, they can always call and ask us, and we can always validate for them. But our system is here from the chain of custody standpoint, and to make sure that they're working within that compliance based on their state. So we do build all of that in for them. And as it modifies and changes, we make those changes. Like something could change today for New Jersey. Let's just look at okay, so we're prepping for November, right? So in New Jersey, for growers and cultivators, as of November, you have to bank your seeds. If they are not genetically banked and they haven't been sent to Metric, You cannot no longer bring in, as of November 1, you can no longer bring in outside state seeds. So anything you're growing within your cultivation, you're going to have banked in there. So we're now going to be looking at new germinations and new seed plantings if they've been banked. We've already built that into our system. So having that there, and so we're already prepped for that. So when it happens, if anything changed today with regulatory stuff, we would have it built in. So by tomorrow morning when it went live, you would log in and you wouldn't have to worry about it. And again, it's just the trust to knowing that we are actually, you pay us for a toolbox and tools. And so it's our job to make sure that it is as up to date as possible.
Man, wow. You kind of blew me away with that one.
Told you, I love to talk. You can get me talking forever. I do notice Kevin Robinson had another question, and he
Yes,
said,
yes,
have
sir.
you ever worked with a company that was using cannabis for an FDA-approved product? Cannabis is cannabis. Whether it's an FDA-approved product or not, it's still through the ag side of it. And so we've worked both in hemp and CBD and also in cannabis. And we've worked on the agricultural side of it. So having worked with the FDA, I know that the requirements for, depending on what state you're in and and depending on your actual product, if you have to report to the FDA very specific things, we would build that report for you so that it would meet the requirements based off of your product and your specific FDA approval needs. Because every FDA approval is slightly different. So it does have to be modified per product.
That's awesome. Great question, Kevin. Any more questions from the audience? All right. I got one last one, Dawne, and I promise I'll let you get out of here.
No,
Okay?
you're fine. You're good.
I mean, I'm just, again, just kind of processing everything you said. 18 years experience. I love the thing you're doing with the helping with compliance. We get a lot of different folks in our chamber, right? We get folks who are newer, just kind of getting started. We have folks who have been in the industry for quite some time and really polished, and everything in between. Regardless of who we're talking to, if someone's telling you, hey, I want to grow in the next year or two, what's the one piece of advice you're going to give that person?
That's a great question because it would be different based on every industry or depending on what they are. So let's just pretend that this is a cultivator and they want to grow. The first thing I would ask them is what is their ediba, right? So, what's your income, what's your expenses, what is it costing you to grow, process, and send out your product? What's your AR look like? What's your accounts receivable look like? I would ask them to be honest with themselves, and if they are carrying a large amount of debt for plants that have not yet produced, and may or may not produce, what their legal repercussions would be with that. Because then we're talking about how are they going to grow? Are they looking at adding more square footage? Are they, depending on that growth, right? So I look at it from the perspective of the need, and every person in every growth scenario is very unique to that person. I have a client currently that I'm working with out of New Mexico. New Mexico is a very hard market to be in right now. It's very small, it's very condensed, and there's a lot of dispensaries in that area. And she's opening up a second dispensary. And and she's having some frustrations with getting cash into the area, right? So she came to me and she asked me, how can I do this better? And it was just a matter of looking at the different options that she has. Was she okay with bringing in someone that she hasn't worked with before? Was she okay with switching, banking systems, things like that, things that were going to help her unify her system rather than keep separating it out. So looking at being able to unify her banking for both of the locations, and then therefore being able to bring in the ATM systems that were going to allow her to get cash. She's in a really remote area in one, and in one area she's not. Would that bank be able to fulfill the ATM requirements for both of them? So having these conversations are very important. And what I love is that our customers trust us enough to actually call and say, I'm struggling and I need some help. I have a client in Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, they basically, they started with, I call them the Oprah Winfrey state of licenses years ago. Everybody got a license. There was when everything was said and done, they were somewhere around 12,000 licenses. And about a year and a half, 2 years ago, when the new governor came in, he decided he didn't like cannabis and he decided he was going to cull all of the licenses. And so they went from 12,000 to just slightly under 4,000 licenses right now. I think they're sitting at around 3,300 licenses now. And so with that, this customer was like, all the dispensaries around me, but I'm still making the same amount of money. And he's like, and I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. And we kind of sat down and we looked at it. I was like, how are you getting your customers coming back in? He wasn't doing any type of campaigning program, or he wasn't doing a loyalty program. So people would one and done him, and then they wouldn't come back. So teaching him how to build loyalty, and now he's thriving and he's doing really well because he's actually providing a service to the area that is now just him and one other person. So servicing that area has become easier for him. And that automation of the first time customer, by the time they walk out the door, they've got a campaign that automatically says, thanks for purchasing, and here's a 5% coupon to come back and purchase again. So thanks for shopping. And then also, hey, can you leave us a feedback review? Here's, it just having that interaction, and then, building in specific things that help them touch customers, if customers' driver's licenses are expiring, reaching out to them and saying, hey, stop in, get a, penny pre-roll for if you update your driver's license with us. People, when they get in the store, will spend more. So having those conversations individually is really important.
No, I mean, it goes back to what we said to kick things off, right? Being that subject matter expert that can really help your clients from A to Z. And I love that.
Oh, I've got so much information in my brain. I can't wait to purge it when I retire, if I ever retire.
Seriously. Well, listen, Dawn, I truly, truly appreciate your time once again and the information. It was great, to say the least.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
Absolutely. So on behalf of the NJC3, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all who joined today and got a wealth of this information with us all. If you found today's session valuable, please share it with a friend. Okay, we'll be sending out an email with the link to the recording, as well with Dawn's information and information on Proteus. So if you want to reach out to them and have a conversation, I thank you once again. My name is Brendon Robinson. On behalf of me, Beth Conway, the entire NJC3, have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
See ya.